as I am about to part from you, I particularly see your good qualities, and I have completely forgotten any defects. I have no worry about leaving the children in your hands, because I know you will raise them to be right and strong. 20 years feels short, but they are long. I'm content that we have lived a happy life together. If there is what is called the other world, we'll be married again. I'll go first and wait for you there, but you mustn't hurry. Live as long as you can for the children and do the things for me I haven't been able to do. You will see our grandchildren and even great grandchildren and tell me all about them when we meet again in the other world. Thank you very much for everything. Homma then sent a letter to his children just before his execution, and it read like this: There are 6 men here who have been sentenced to life. It will be better to be shot to death, like dying an honorable death on the battlefield, than spending a disgraceful life in such a cage for the rest of one's life. Don't lose courage, children. Don't give in to temptation. Walk straight on the road of justice. The spirit of your father will long watch over you. Your father will be pleased if you make your way in the right direction rather than bring flowers to his grave. Do not miss the right course. This is my very last letter. And so went General Homma. Here, I'm just
It's
gonna
actually
turn
kind of
off my
sad
map.
because
It is very sad. I like I always say, I kind of, not that I'm defending Yamashita, but the Yamashita case, there's more evidence that Yamashita could have been aware of some things in 1945. Like especially his treatment of when he was withdrawing in the defense of the Philippines. There's a lot of atrocities there. But in the early days of the Malayan campaign and the Singapore campaign, it's Toiji that did a lot of that. Yamashita, there is clear evidence Yamashita was not aware of what was happening. For Homma, it's like almost straight cut that he did not know. And if you look at his career, you look where he was educated, you look at him as a person, I mean, the entire
the
Japanese
fact that
command was coming after him.
yeah, just because he was not willing to massacre civilians.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
pretty
think
much
it's a
that's
blemish.
literally one.
I think
And
this is a direct blemish on MacArthur, personally, because it was MacArthur who pushed the envelope.
yeah, he said, MacArthur's own quote, right? If this defendant does not deserve his judicial fate, none in jurisdictional history ever did. There can be no greater, more heinous, or more dangerous crime than the mass destruction under guise of military authority or military necessity of helpless men incapable of further contribution to war effort. A failure of law process to punish such acts of criminal enormity would threaten the very fabric of world society. Okay, I get it, but then where was the law in consideration if, anyways, the guy was already decided to be guilty, right? Even General Arthur Trudeau, who was one of the people who was in that 5-man committee that condemned Homma to death, he said he had a pretty high opinion of Homma actually. He did not like the decision. So if I were to just quote General Arthur Trudeau on this, and this is what he said in 71, right? So it's many years after. There's no question but that some men who were either weak or wounded were shot down or bayoneted on this death march. The question is,
Yes.
how many echelons of command up is a person responsible to the point where you should condemn him for murder or crime? And that is what General Homma was accused of. We need to cogitate about our wisdom in condemning General Homma to death. I must admit, I was not much in favor of it. In fact, I was opposed to it, but I could only oppose it to a point that allowed him to be shot as a soldier and not be hanged. I thought he was an outstanding soldier.
Yeah, because when it comes down to it, the most egregious crime is, of course, the Bataan Death March. But I think I explained it into some depth in the last episode. There was plans that were presented to Homma, and like for lack of better words, the plans on paper looked great. It looked like everything was, they had these relief stations, they'd be fed, they'd be watered, they wouldn't have to walk most of it. Like, it was going to be properly done. It was planned for like 15,000 people, ended up being like
Yeah,
75,000 people. And on top of
I think
that,
they were, yeah, I was just saying the number of people that were planned for and the actuals was significantly off by factors of multiples, pretty much. I think you mentioned 25,000, but as you said, 75, 80,000 were on the march. They did not really, and most of the officers did not follow the plan. They just did not give a damn.
of
But
course,
as you did correctly highlight in the previous episode, there were good amount of instances, like still not the majority, but there were instances of Japanese soldiers and officers, right? Just like privates or lieutenants, like, throwing the water carriers to the prisoners so that they can use it. Some officers preventing needless executions, and also the courage of the Filipino citizens who sometimes would try to smuggle away the American soldiers. And I think they mentioned, right, one colonel, instead of blind execution of some prisoners, I think he just let them run into the jungle rather than do it himself and just claim that, oh yeah, they escaped.
Because so again, Soichi had a hand to play in this, as well as other nefarious characters. They undermine the efforts, and unlike we always like to, there's always a comparison between the Nazi regime and the Japanese. The Nazi regime was men following orders most of the time. Of course, there's just psychopaths doing horrible things, but the Einsatzgruppen and all of them, they're following orders. This is a systematic killing of specific people, like Slavs, the Jews, the Romani, all of them. When it comes to the Japanese atrocities, this is like usually just spur of the moment, hot blooded. Could be grunts, could be officers, are just
I
killing
get where you're
people
going.
needlessly.
I get it, because if you even look at it, those who the Nazis considered as the Untermenschen, right, which were like those the Slavs, the Bolsheviks, etc., right, the Jews. I mean, they were hated on from the get go, and there was a systematic killing. But generally, if you would consider it, like those who were not part of these groups, like those who were, say, in occupied France, the Nordics, the Low Countries. It was not until the war really started to destroy Germany's resources, those territories were relatively better managed and treated by the German authorities then.
Yeah, like you said, until the sabotage really was taking a toll, then they, they make an example, grab a few workers at a plant and start killing them, like even in the Netherlands and stuff, of course. But for the Japanese, who do have an Untermenschen kind of mentality of their own, let's be honest, the co-prosperity sphere, it's like, oh, we're here for Pan Asianism, but we're the father and you're the children, and you
We're the
need to be
top dog.
reprimanded and reminded. Yeah, the yeah. I mean, especially against the Chinese, like it's insane the level of barbarity they would perform against the Chinese and Indians. The Japanese were
Yeah,
notorious for killing Indian POWs.
uh,
It's
I think
disgusting.
I think only General Reina probably was the only guy that probably liked them, but probably just because he got an extra division, so he was gonna tolerate them during his Kohima offensive.
Yeah. So I do apologize to the audience for taking you handicap at the end to go through the war crimes trial. But I thought it was important because General Homma is a character who he's like it's just like
This deserves to be
Kobayashi,
spoken.
Yamashita. Yeah. It was bad, but I see it from the other side as well. Even take MacArthur out of the equation, someone had to be put as the scapegoat for the death march. Justice had to be served to those men, because you can't put
It
what
does make
50
sense, I guess.
officers up there. It didn't make sense.
True, and I guess at the same time, where the defense for Homa, which I think we might be slightly in favor, is not at an institutional level. It is for the individual in question.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to put a war crimes trial on, for these instances, especially for the Bataan Death March, because who do you blame? It's thousands of grunts. It's all these minor, low-ranking, and young officers. We're talking like 22-year-old
Uh,
like officers
and
doing this.
they're probably, most of them are dead by now,
Yeah,
by the
they're
time
all
of the
over the
trials.
place. Yeah, a lot of them are in Manchuria, expelled. Anyways, yeah, but it made sense that they had to put a face on it, and yeah, of course it's gonna be Homa. Unfortunately, and his demise is a sad one. I have to note, when you read American books on the subject matter, usually American books, I mean, I'm talking like the ones that came out in the 70s, 80s, and such, are not lenient against these Japanese figures. But when it comes to Yamashita and Homa, they do kind of sympathize with what happened. So it's there. But that finishes off this series. I'm going to be fully making this a sort of documentary. It'll be on the YouTube channel.